What if I told you that the deepest secret about yourself is hidden in a single moment of choice? That in the next 30 seconds, your subconscious mind will reveal a truth you've been running from your entire life? Don't think. Don't analyze. Just trust your instincts, because what happens next will shatter everything you thought you knew about who you really are. Look at these 5 legendary weapons before you. Which one draws your attention like a magnet? Stop overthinking this moment. Your first instinct already holds the key to unlocking your deepest psychological patterns. This isn't some random personality quiz you scroll past on social media. What you're experiencing right now is a direct gateway into your unconscious mind, a territory that Carl Jung spent over 6 decades mapping and understanding. When you choose a symbol, you're not really choosing at all. The symbol is choosing you. These ancient archetypes buried deep in your psyche are calling out, revealing battles you've been fighting in silence, wounds you've been carrying, and patterns that have been secretly controlling your life for decades. Every human being shares what Jung called the collective unconscious, an ancient library of symbols and meanings hardwired into our DNA through millions of years of human evolution. Your choice isn't coincidence. It's your soul recognizing its own reflection in the mirror of symbolism, speaking a language that bypasses your rational mind completely. At the end of this revelation, I'll share with you a specific Jungian technique that allows you to have actual conversations with the archetype you've just awakened. This isn't abstract theory. It's a practice that has transformed thousands of lives within weeks, sometimes within days. A psychological tool so powerful it can shatter decades-old patterns if you commit to using it with genuine discipline and courage. But this technique is only revealed to those who journey with me to the end, because not everyone is ready to face what their psyche is trying to tell them. Some people prefer to stay asleep, comfortable in their familiar patterns of suffering. If you're feeling that electric sensation right now, that recognition deep in your chest, that tingling awareness that something profound is happening, hit that like button. Your energy fuels this transformation, and we're going to need every ounce of collective consciousness for what's about to unfold. Take a moment to center yourself. You're not just consuming content, you're stepping into a dialogue with your deepest self, a journey into the symbolic realm that Jung called the territory of meaning, where logic falls silent and soul wisdom speaks. Here, every weapon becomes a messenger from your unconscious. Every choice becomes a revelation about patterns you've been unconsciously repeating. So tell me, which one magnetized your attention first? The sword, the spear, the bow, the shield, or the axe? Because whatever drew you in didn't just reveal a preference. It exposed a story that's been writing itself through your entire life. Your story, and that story begins now in this moment of recognition. If the sword called to your soul, stop and truly see it. This isn't just metal and edge, it's a living paradox forged in the fires of perfectionism and precision, razor-sharp accuracy wrapped in elegant form, yet capable of cutting both ways, outward toward the world in judgment, and inward toward your own heart in relentless self-criticism. You carry within you what Jung identified as the inner inquisitor, a psychological judge that never sleeps, never rests, never shows mercy, never declares the work complete. This voice was forged in your earliest years, likely in environments where love felt conditional, where acceptance depended on performance rather than presence, where being good enough was never actually good enough. Perhaps you grew up surrounded by impossible standards that seemed to shift every time you thought you'd finally reach them. Maybe your worth was measured in achievements, grades, awards, or how well you behaved in social situations. Your developing psyche learned a survival strategy that seemed brilliant at the time. If I judge myself harder than anyone else can, if I spot my flaws before others do, if I maintain perfect vigilance over my mistakes, I'll never be vulnerable to their criticism again. I'll never experience that devastating surprise of rejection or disappointment. This inner sword granted you incredible focus, laser-like discipline, and the ability to see through confusion with surgical precision. You became the person who notices details others miss, who can cut straight to the heart of any problem, who maintain standards that inspire both admiration and exhaustion in those around you. Your analytical mind became a weapon of incredible power, capable of dissecting complex situations and finding solutions where others see only chaos. But that same blade that makes you powerful also wounds you daily, hour by hour, moment by moment. Every small mistake becomes evidence of fundamental inadequacy. Every success feels temporary, conditional, never quite enough to silence the inner prosecutor. The compliments others give you bounce off like rain on armor, while criticism penetrates deep and lingers for months or years. Jung warned us that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Your perfectionism isn't protecting you. It's preventing you from feeling the deeper pain you've been avoiding since childhood. A grief about never being unconditionally accepted, a fear that your true self might not be lovable, a loneliness that no amount of flawless performance can heal. The wound beneath the sword is usually about love that came with conditions, affection that had to be earned through achievement rather than simply received through existence. Your soul's message is crystal clear, but requires tremendous courage to implement. Transform judgment into compassionate discernment. Your sword must evolve from a weapon of self-destruction into an instrument of healing truth. This doesn't mean lowering your standards or accepting mediocrity. It means learning to see mistakes as information rather than condemnation, to view imperfection as human rather than shameful. For the next 3 days, simply observe your inner judge without trying to change it. Don't fight it or silence it. Just listen with the curiosity of a scientist studying a fascinating specimen. Notice its tone, its specific words, its emotional undertones, the physical sensations it creates in your body. When you hear it launching into its familiar litany of criticism, whisper quietly, "I see you. I understand why you're here, but I am not you." This awareness creates the first hairline crack in decades of conditioning, allowing light to seep into the darkness. Imagine your life when that sword stops punishing and starts guiding. When that same sharpness becomes your ally in truth rather than your enemy in perfectionism. When you can maintain high standards without destroying yourself in the process. Because sacred swords don't destroy, they illuminate. They cut through illusion to reveal what's actually true, what actually matters, what actually deserves your energy and attention. Now tell me, do you recognize this pattern in your life? That relentless inner critic that analyzes every word you speak, every decision you make, every expression on your face? Share it in the comments below. Your honesty might resonate with someone else fighting the same invisible battle, helping them realize they're not alone in this particular form of suffering. Stay with me because what comes next belongs to those who are always running toward tomorrow, never quite arriving at today, living perpetually in the future tense of their own lives. If the spear resonated with your instincts, observe its form carefully. Always pointing forward, never at rest, eternally reaching toward horizons that seem to retreat with every step you take. Like a mirage in the desert of time, the spear embodies pure momentum, unrelenting forward motion, the essence of becoming rather than being. You are what I call a temporal refugee, someone whose soul learned to escape the present by constantly reaching toward the future. You live with phrases like, "When I finally achieve this," "When I get that promotion," "When I find the right relationship," "When I lose those 20 pounds," "When I finish this project," "When I move to that city, then I'll finally be happy. Then I'll finally be at peace, then my real life will begin." Most spear carriers develop this pattern in childhood environments too painful to inhabit fully. Maybe your home was chaotic, unstable, or emotionally unsafe. Perhaps there was addiction, mental illness, financial stress, or constant conflict that made the present moment feel dangerous or overwhelming. Your psyche discovered a brilliant survival mechanism. Escape forward into a future that promised safety, fulfillment, and the resolution of all current pain. Your mind learned to time travel, always preparing, always improving, always strategizing, always chasing the next milestone that would finally deliver you from the discomfort of now. This gave you extraordinary drive, relentless focus, and the ability to achieve what others only dream about. You became a master of momentum, capable of pushing through obstacles that would stop others cold. You're the person who builds businesses, completes degrees, transforms their body, learns new skills, and accomplishes goals that seem impossible to ordinary mortals. But momentum became your prison as much as your power. The moment you slow down, the moment you try to rest, the silence returns, and with it, the pain you originally ran from decades ago. You've built your entire identity on forward motion, on the promise of arrival, on the belief that happiness exists somewhere ahead in time rather than here in this breath. But your soul is whispering a revolutionary truth that terrifies and liberates in equal measure. Stop running. You're already there. The destination you've been seeking isn't a place in time, it's a quality of presence. Jung taught us that all progress without integration is just sophisticated escape, neurotic motion disguised as growth. Your constant future focus isn't evolution. It's avoidance of present moment pain that needs to be felt and integrated rather than transcended. The uncomfortable truth is that no future achievement will fix what hurts right now. No goal completion will fill the emptiness you're running from. No external change will heal the internal wound that keeps you moving. Your mission isn't to conquer more future. It's to reclaim the lost territory of now. The spear can still point forward, but what it seeks isn't another destination. It seeks rootedness in this breath, this heartbeat, this moment of existence that you've been unconsciously fleeing for years. 3 times daily, plant both feet firmly on the ground wherever you are. Feel your body's weight pressing into the earth. Take 5 deep breaths and ask, what is alive in me right now? Don't analyze or fix what you discover. Just observe with gentle curiosity. Notice physical sensations, emotions, thoughts, energy levels, whatever arises in the space of stillness. This simple act begins pulling your spirit back into your body, back into the present moment that you've been treating as a waiting room for some day. The revolutionary realization that changes everything is this: the present isn't a bridge to the future. It is the destination. Right now, in this imperfect, incomplete, uncertain moment, you are not behind, not late, not missing anything. You are exactly where your story needs you to be for this precise chapter of your evolution. Do you recognize yourself in this eternal journey toward tomorrow? That subtle tension that never lets you fully land in today? That voice that says you'll be happy when, peaceful when, successful when? Write about it below. Your reflection might help another time traveler find their stillness, their permission to stop running toward a future that keeps moving away. Don't leave yet, because the next weapon belongs to those whose hearts transform pain into light, whose souls learn to turn emotional lead into psychological gold, a gift that comes with its own hidden burden. If your soul was magnetized by the bow, truly see its nature in all its complex beauty, never completely still, always holding tension in its curve, transforming stillness into motion, pressure into precision, raw emotion into directed purpose. The bow exists in a state of perpetual readiness, coiled potential waiting for the right moment to release its power into the world. You are what Jung would recognize as an emotional alchemist, someone who learned to transform raw feeling into wisdom, pain into beauty, chaos into meaning, poison into medicine. You feel deeply, perhaps too deeply for this harsh world that often seems to reward emotional numbness over sensitivity. You're the person others come to when their world falls apart, because somehow you can take their scattered pieces and help them see the pattern, the purpose, the hidden gift in their suffering. Most emotional alchemists were created in turbulent homes where emotions ran wild and unpredictable, like weather systems beyond human control. You learned early to become the stabilizer, the translator, the one who could read the emotional atmosphere and adjust accordingly. Perhaps you had a parent who struggled with depression, anxiety, addiction, or explosive anger. Maybe you grew up walking on eggshells, constantly monitoring moods, learning to soothe adults instead of being soothed by them. You carried emotions that were never yours to carry, absorbed feelings that belonged to others, became a human shock absorber for family trauma. Your psyche developed this sacred ability as a survival mechanism. If I can transform pain into meaning, if I can find the lesson in every loss, if I can turn every crisis into growth, then it won't destroy me. If I can be useful to others in their pain, then maybe I have value, maybe I belong, maybe I'm worthy of love. And it worked magnificently for a while. You became the healer, the wise counselor, the sanctuary where others find peace when their own inner storms rage. People seek you out because you radiate a kind of calm understanding that comes only from having walked through fire and emerged with gifts. Your presence feels like a refuge from the harshness of the world. But alchemy demands a price that most people never see. While you constantly transform others' pain, you rarely allow yourself to simply feel your own without immediately trying to extract meaning from it. You turn every storm into poetry, every wound into wisdom, every heartbreak into compassion for others. You've become so skilled at finding the silver lining that you sometimes forget it's okay to acknowledge the cloud. The shadow side of the emotional alchemist is that you may have lost touch with your own raw, unprocessed feelings. You've spent so much energy helping others navigate their emotions that you've forgotten how to simply sit with your own, without trying to transform them into something more palatable, more useful, more meaningful. Jung warned that the wounded healer who never heals themselves eventually poisons their own medicine. Your unprocessed pain seeps through everything you touch, not from malice but from exhaustion, from the accumulated weight of carrying so much that was never yours to carry. You don't need to abandon your bow. You need to occasionally loosen its string. Not every emotion needs to be sculpted into meaning. Sometimes the sacred act is simply feeling without transforming, being human without having to extract wisdom from the experience. Your soul is asking you to honor the full spectrum of your emotional life, including the parts that aren't pretty, meaningful, or useful to others. Once this week, let yourself experience discomfort without alchemy. If sadness comes, sit with it without searching for its purpose. If anger rises, let it exist without trying to understand its message. If loneliness knocks at your door, don't immediately try to transform it into art or insight. Just breathe and feel, allowing emotion to move through you like weather through the sky. Natural and temporary and requiring no interpretation. Emotion that's truly felt without resistance dissolves naturally, not through force or analysis, but through recognition and acceptance. True alchemy isn't changing emotion into something else, it's allowing emotion to reveal what's already divine within its raw, unprocessed form. Do you see yourself in this description? Have you spent years turning pain into meaning while forgetting to rest inside your own heart? Share your truth in the comments. Your honesty might remind another emotional alchemist that it's safe to stop holding everything together, that it's okay to fall apart without having to find the lesson immediately. Stay with me because the next weapon belongs to those who learn to survive behind perfect reflections, protecting themselves not with steel, but with flawless performance, masterful adaptation, and the exhausting art of becoming what others need. If the shield drew your attention, look beyond its polished surface that gleams so brilliantly in the light. Notice the fine cracked spider webbing across the metal, almost invisible fractures that tell your deepest story. The price of maintaining such perfect reflection for so many years. The shield represents what I call the fractured mirror, someone who learned survival through reflection, becoming what others needed rather than discovering who they truly were. You mastered the art of adaptation, of perfect performance, of reading rooms and adjusting your personality accordingly, of keeping everyone else comfortable even when it meant disappearing from yourself. This likely began in childhood where love had conditions attached like invisible strings. You were accepted when you behaved correctly, performed well, fit the expected mold, didn't cause problems, didn't ask for too much, didn't take up too much space. Being authentic felt dangerous because authentic children sometimes get rejected, criticized, or abandoned. So you learned to hide behind carefully crafted personas, becoming a master of social camouflage. Maybe you grew up in a family where appearances mattered more than authenticity, where image was everything and genuine emotion was discouraged or punished. Perhaps you learned that love was something to be earned through good behavior, rather than something you deserved simply for existing. Your survival strategy became reading people's needs and becoming whatever would keep you safe, accepted, valued. Your shield protected you brilliantly for years. You navigated social storms without getting wet, avoided confrontations that might have ended relationships, earned approval and admiration from people who never saw your real face. You became the reliable one, the charming one, the one who never causes drama, never creates waves, never makes anyone uncomfortable. You learned to sense what people wanted and deliver it with such skill that you probably don't even remember making the choice to hide. But now that armor feels suffocating because each false reflection, each performance, each time you chose safety over authenticity, left behind a fragment of your true self. You wore so many faces for so long that when you're finally alone, when the performance ends and the audience goes home, you can't quite remember which face in the mirror is actually yours. The tragedy of the fractured mirror is that you became so good at being what others wanted that you lost touch with what you wanted, who you were beneath all the adaptation. Jung promised us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But for the mirror bearer, this feels absolutely terrifying. What if your real face isn't acceptable? What if when you stop reflecting what others want to see, they lose interest and drift away? What if your authentic self is too much, too little, too different, too ordinary? The cracks you fear aren't signs of failure. They're proof that something real and alive is pushing to emerge from beneath all that polished perfection. Your authentic self has been knocking from within for years, maybe decades, asking to be seen and heard and allowed to breathe freely. Those cracks represent your soul's rebellion against a lifetime of hiding. Here's the paradox that will change everything once you truly understand it. People don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your imperfections, with the raw humanity beneath the mask, with the vulnerable truth you've been so carefully protecting. They don't fall in love with your performance. They fall in love with the moments when the performance breaks down and something real shows through the cracks. The relationships built on your false reflections are ultimately hollow because they're not actually with you. They're with the image you've projected. But the connections that form when you dare to show something authentic, even if it's messy or uncertain, those become the relationships that actually nourish your soul. This week, take one small risk with authenticity. Share one genuine truth with someone you trust, something you usually hide behind the polished surface. It could be a fear that keeps you awake at night, a mistake you made that you're still ashamed of, a secret tenderness that you've never spoken aloud, a dream that feels too big or too silly to voice. Notice what happens when you let someone see behind the shield. You might discover that instead of judgment, you receive understanding. Instead of rejection, you find connection. Instead of criticism, you encounter compassion. You were never meant to reflect others like a mirror. You were meant to shine from within like a star, unique and irreplaceable and absolutely perfect in your imperfection. Your soul doesn't want polish, it wants wholeness. It doesn't want performance, it wants presence. It doesn't want you to be impressive, it wants you to be real. Do you recognize this mirror in your own existence? Do you sometimes feel trapped inside the version of yourself others expect to see? Do you remember who you were before you learned to become what others needed? Write your reflection in the comments. Your courage might inspire someone else to lower their shield too, to risk being seen for who they really are beneath all the careful adaptation. Stay with me because what comes next is the most transformative of all, the weapon of those born in chaos, carriers of ancestral storms destined to break cycles that have lasted generations, to end patterns that began long before they drew their first breath. If the axe called to you, understand its profound significance. This weapon never chooses lightly, never selects randomly. It belongs to those forged in ancestral fire, carriers of generational storms, descendants of trauma and resilience in equal measure destined to end what began long before their time, to break chains that have bound their bloodline for decades or centuries. The axe is heavy because it carries not just your story, but the echoes of generations, the accumulated weight of family patterns, cultural trauma, inherited pain that passed down through bloodlines like a genetic inheritance of the soul. You likely come from ancestral turbulence, families where love mixed with chaos, homes marked by scarcity, conflict, addiction, violence, or devastating silence. Perhaps your grandparents survived wars, famines, persecution, or displacement. Maybe your parents grew up in dysfunction and passed down what they inherited, not from malice, but from unconsciousness, not knowing how to break cycles they didn't understand. Perhaps you saw too much too early, experienced childhood not as a playground but as a battlefield where survival depended on hypervigilance, self-protection, and learning to be strong when the adults couldn't be. To survive, you hardened like metal in fire. You learned radical self-reliance to cut ties before being cut, to move decisively and sometimes mercilessly when situations demanded it. You developed an internal alarm system that could sense danger from miles away, and an ability to make impossible choices when others would freeze or flee. This gave you incredible endurance that amazes even yourself. When others collapsed under pressure, you found reserves of strength you didn't know existed. When life demanded impossible choices, you made them and lived with the consequences. You became the rebuilder, the one who rises from ashes, who can start over as many times as necessary, who carries scars like medals of honor. Your axe granted you courage, focus, determination, and an unshakable core that no external storm can touch. But a weapon this powerful doesn't distinguish between the forest that needs clearing and the roots you still need for nourishment. Sometimes in your fierce determination to survive and protect yourself, you cut away parts of yourself that were still alive, still valuable, still necessary for a full life. Softness, trust, tenderness, vulnerability, the ability to receive help, the capacity to believe in lasting love, all casualties of necessary survival that became unnecessary self-protection. You called it survival, and it was. But survival isn't the same as living. Surviving is about making it through. Living is about thriving, connecting, trusting, opening your heart even when it might get broken, allowing yourself to need others even when they might let you down. Jung taught that ancestral trauma passes down through families like a river of pain flowing from generation to generation until someone has the courage and consciousness to step into that river and redirect its flow. If you chose the axe, you are that someone. You were born with the strength to end what began generations ago, to take the accumulated pain of your lineage and transform it into wisdom, healing, and a different legacy for those who come after you. Your purpose is no longer defense, it's creation. You're not meant to swing the axe endlessly, cutting down everything that might threaten you. You're meant to learn when to stop swinging, when to put down the weapon, when to plant seeds where you once struck, when to build bridges where you once burned them, when to choose connection over protection. This week, identify one pattern that runs through your family story like a dark thread. It might be anger that explodes unpredictably, scarcity mindset that sees never enough, silence that avoids difficult conversations, control that manipulates through fear, abandonment that leaves before being left, or addiction that numbs pain instead of healing it. Notice how this pattern appears in your own life, how it shows up in your relationships, your work, your inner dialogue, your automatic responses to stress. Then do one thing differently, even something small. Have one honest conversation instead of maintaining silence. Choose vulnerability instead of control. Offer trust instead of suspicion. Practice abundance instead of hoarding. One conscious choice made in awareness can break a chain that's held your family for generations. You were never cursed by your lineage. You were chosen by it. Chosen to be the bridge between what was and what can be. You are the end of an old story written in survival, and the beginning of a new story written in consciousness, healing, and love. Imagine future generations, your children, your students, your community, walking freely because you chose to stop swinging and start building, because you had the courage to feel the pain instead of perpetuating it, to heal the wound instead of passing it on, past building meaning. That's the true power of the axe, not destruction, but transformation, not ending things, but beginning them, not cutting down but clearing space for something beautiful to grow. Do you feel that ancestral weight in your bloodline? Do you sense that your battles began long before you were born? That you're fighting wars that started in previous generations? Share it below. When one heir of chaos speaks their truth, others recognize the echo. And remember, they're not alone in carrying this particular burden or blessed with this particular power. Now, as promised, here's the revolutionary practice Jung called active imagination, your direct line to the unconscious mind, a technique so powerful it can change the entire trajectory of your inner life. If you practice it with sincerity and courage, you've chosen your weapon, or rather, it has chosen you, recognizing something in your psyche that resonates with its particular frequency of meaning. Now that the symbol has spoken, the question becomes, what will you do with what it revealed? Will you ignore this information and return to unconscious living? Or will you use it as a doorway into deeper self-understanding and healing? Carl Jung taught that when a symbol stirs something inside us, it's never coincidence, never random, never meaningless. It's a summons, an invitation from the unconscious to begin dialogue with hidden parts of ourselves that have been waiting years or decades to be acknowledged. The purpose isn't to judge these parts or fix them like broken machinery, but to integrate them, to make the unconscious conscious so it no longer controls us from the shadows of our minds. Active imagination is Jung's bridge between the rational mind that thinks it knows everything and the symbolic world of the soul that speaks in images, feelings, and metaphors. It's a practice that allows you to have actual conversations with the archetypal forces that shape your life, to negotiate with the patterns that have been running automatically, to bring awareness to the parts of yourself that have been operating in darkness. Find a space where you won't be disturbed, where you can sit comfortably without distractions from the outside world or the demands of daily life. Close your eyes and breathe deeply, letting each exhale carry away the noise of rational thought, the endless commentary of the thinking mind, the pressure to analyze or understand. Breathe until you reach that quiet space between thoughts where the soul can finally speak, without being interrupted by mental chatter. Visualize your chosen weapon clearly before you in your mind's eye. See its weight, its color, its texture, its presence. Notice how it feels to be in its company. What emotions arise, what sensations move through your body. This isn't just an object in your imagination. It's a living symbol, a messenger from your own psyche carrying information that your conscious mind has been unable to access through ordinary thinking. Ask your weapon softly, with genuine curiosity and respect. What message do you have for me? What have you been trying to tell me? What do I need to understand about myself? Then wait without forcing, without trying to make something happen, without analyzing what arises. The unconscious speaks in whispers, not in logical sentences. It communicates through images, feelings, sensations, sudden knowing, unexpected emotions, memories that surface from nowhere. Words may come, or pictures, or pure feeling, or simply a sense of understanding that bypasses language entirely. Whatever arises, no matter how strange or unexpected, is part of the conversation your soul has been waiting to have. Don't dismiss anything as silly or meaningless. Don't try to make it make sense according to rational logic. Just receive what comes with gratitude and curiosity. Now talk back to your weapon as if it were a wise friend or teacher who has known you your entire life. Yes, actually speak to this symbol either aloud or in your mind. Thank it for protecting you all these years. Apologize if you've ignored its messages or fought against its influence. Forgive it for any pain it may have caused through its overzealous protection. Tell it what you're ready to learn from it now, what you're willing to change, how you want to grow beyond the patterns it represents. Ask it what it needs from you to transform from a survival mechanism into a tool of consciousness, from a source of suffering into a source of wisdom. When the dialogue feels complete, when you sense that enough has been shared for this session, imagine yourself holding the weapon once more. But notice how it feels different now. Lighter perhaps, warmer, more alive. It's no longer just a symbol of survival or protection. It's become a tool of integration, part of your conscious awareness rather than your unconscious prison. It has transformed from something that controlled you into something you can work with consciously. Open your eyes slowly and immediately write down everything you experienced, not as logical analysis or psychological interpretation, but as faithful record of soul communication. Describe what the weapon looked like, what it said or showed you, how you felt during different parts of the conversation, what insights arose, what emotions moved through you, what you learned about yourself that you didn't know before. Over time, as you repeat this practice weekly, you'll begin noticing patterns in your outer life that reflect your inner dialogue. Dreams may become more vivid and meaningful. Coincidences may increase. New emotions or responses may surface in situations that used to trigger automatic reactions. Old patterns may begin shifting without conscious effort. This is your psyche's way of saying, I hear you, I'm listening, I'm ready to work with consciousness instead of against it. Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you think you should be, not who others expect you to be, not who you were conditioned to become, but who you actually are beneath all the layers of protection, performance, and conditioning. That's what this entire journey has been about. Remembering, reclaiming, and reconciling the hidden fragments that make you whole, that make you uniquely yourself in a world that often pressures us toward conformity and unconsciousness. You are not just the sword, nor just the spear, nor just the bow, nor just the shield, nor just the axe. You are the consciousness that can hold them all, that can access their gifts while not being dominated by their shadows. You are the one who can cut through illusion and build toward truth, who can protect when necessary and open when safe, who can feel deeply and act wisely, who can honor the past while creating a different future. Before you go, take one last breath and whisper inwardly with complete sincerity, I see you, all the parts of me that have been hidden. I hear you, all the voices that have been trying to guide me. I am ready to be whole, not perfect, but authentically, courageously, consciously whole. That simple declaration is how transformation begins, not with grand gestures or dramatic changes, but with the quiet courage to acknowledge what has always been true, and the willingness to work with it consciously, rather than being controlled by it unconsciously. If this journey resonated with you, if something inside you awakened or shifted or recognized itself, share it in the comments below. Your truth might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to begin their own journey toward wholeness. And if you're ready to walk further on this path of conscious living, remember that the unconscious is always speaking, always offering guidance, always ready to support your growth, but only to those who are still enough to listen, brave enough to hear, and committed enough to act on what they discover.